She had barely turned 47 when the coughing got worse. At first her husband Daniel thought it was just a cold. A little winter bug. But something in her eyes said otherwise. Something distant. Like she was slowly fading. Amelia always hated hospitals, but when she collapsed in the kitchen with blood on her lips, Daniel knew this wasn't something chicken soup could fix. The air was cold, loud, and merciless. Machines beeped in perfect rhythm as if mocking how her time was ticking. When the doctor pulled Daniel aside, his face dropped before a word was spoken. Stage 4. The kind of stage where there's no Act 5. She has months, the doctor said. Maybe. Daniel's world tilted. His fingers shook as he held the papers. But when he looked back at Amelia lying on that bed with an 4 in her arm and a half-smile still on her lips, all he could think was, how is she stronger than me, even now? The news traveled fast. Too fast. Her brother Liam, who hadn't called her in years, was suddenly in the hospital hallway with flowers and a crooked smile. Her sister Caroline, whom she hadn't heard from since the wedding, posted a selfie at the hospital's front entrance with a caption that read, "Prayers up. #family first." Daniel watched them come, not with grief in their eyes, but with something darker. Quietly calculating. Politely waiting. As if every beep of that heart monitor was a countdown. Amelia didn't notice, or maybe she did but chose not to care. Her world had shrunk. Her focus now was Daniel. Every hour with him. Every touch. Every whispered, "I love you," that shook more than the morphine ever could. "You're still here," she'd say every morning, smiling through pale lips. "And I'll be here till the end," he'd reply, holding her hand like it was made of glass. But the calls started coming. The texts. Caroline asking about the will, as if it were part of some casual checklist. Liam sending links to retirement homes that might be cheaper for when it gets worse. And worst of all, the whispered conversations when they thought Amelia was asleep. "She has no kids. Everything's going to him. She's not thinking clearly. We need to make sure we're protected." She always was a little too emotional. Daniel heard it all. Every word was a knife. But he never told Amelia. Her smile was already fading more each day. He didn't want to be the one to take what was left. One night, while the rain slapped against the windows like angry hands, Amelia asked Daniel to bring her an old wooden box from the attic. Dusty, untouched for years. Inside were photos, old letters, and a small stack of handwritten pages. Her will. She handed it to him with shaking fingers. "I already made my decision," she whispered. Daniel looked at her confused. "About what?" "About who gets what," she said softly. "There's not much, but what I do have, the house, my savings, the lake cabin, it's yours." Daniel froze. "Amelia, I don't need any of that." "I know," she smiled. "That's why you deserve it." Tears burned behind his eyes. "What about Liam?" "Caroline." Her smile cracked for a second, then faded completely. "They've been waiting for me to die," she said, eyes drifting to the rain outside. "But you've been helping me live." Daniel sat beside her bed in silence, unable to speak. Outside the storm roared. Inside, a softer storm was breaking a man's heart. "I'm so tired," Amelia whispered. "But I'm not afraid, not as long as you're here." He leaned in, kissed her forehead and held her close. In that moment she didn't feel like a woman dying. He felt like a woman choosing. Choosing love over blood. The will wasn't even cold before the whispers turned to raised voices. It started 2 days after Amelia slipped into a deeper sleep, one she hadn't quite woken up from. The hospice nurse told Daniel it was only a matter of time now. Minutes. Hours maybe. The morphine made her peaceful, but it was a haunting kind of peace. One that felt final. That night, Liam called a family meeting in her living room. Daniel walked in to find Caroline sipping wine like it was a casual Friday night, Liam scrolling through his phone, and neither of them looking the least bit heartbroken. "We need to talk about her estate," Caroline said bluntly. Daniel sat down slowly, still wearing the same hoodie he hadn't taken off since Amelia's last hospital visit. His face was hollow, his eyes tired. "Estate," he echoed. "Yes," Liam cut in. The house, the cabin, the savings. It was our parents' money before it was hers, Daniel. Daniel didn't speak. Caroline leaned forward. Look, I get that you were her husband. But Amelia wasn't in her right mind when she made that will. She was emotional. Weak. Daniel's jaw clenched. She was dying. Exactly, Liam said. And we don't think it's fair that everything goes to you. Daniel stood up slowly. The room went quiet. She made her choice, he said. Because while you two were posting fake prayers and asking about money, I was helping her walk to the bathroom. I was holding her hair back when she threw up her meds. I was reading her poetry every night so she could fall asleep without fear. Caroline scoffed. So that means you get everything? No, Daniel said quietly. It means she trusted me with what was hers, because she knew I loved her, not her bank account. Liam stood too, his voice rising. You manipulated her. No, Daniel said, stepping closer. You abandoned her. For years. And now you're mad that love doesn't pay you back in checks. The silence that followed was like a vacuum. Caroline looked away. Liam sat down again, suddenly quiet. The next day Amelia stirred for the last time. Her breathing shallow, lips pale, eyes fluttering open like heavy curtains on a forgotten window. Daniel rushed to her side. Hey, I'm here, he whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She smiled faintly. Are they gone? He nodded. They're gone. Good, she whispered, barely audible. I only wanted peace, not a war. Daniel's throat burned. I'm so sorry you had to see that. She reached for his hand and squeezed it, soft but sure. Not your fault. I chose peace. I chose you. And then, she closed her eyes. This time they didn't open. The nurse came. Time of death was called. Rain pattered against the windows like soft applause. Like even the sky knew a good soul had left the earth. Caroline and Liam didn't even show up that night. They texted the next morning asking when the funeral would be and if the cabin was being sold. Daniel didn't respond. Instead he sat alone in the kitchen staring at the mug she always used, the one with the chip on the side and the faded roses. He held it like it might warm his hands again. He didn't want the house. He didn't care about the savings. All he wanted was 5 more minutes with her. Just 5. The church pews were filled but the room felt hollow. Amelia's funeral was on a Thursday morning, under gray skies and trembling tree branches. Rain hadn't started yet, but it hung heavy in the air, like the grief everyone wore on their faces but couldn't name. Daniel stood near the altar, his hand gently resting on the closed casket. He had picked the deep cherry wood himself. Simple. Elegant. The way she would have liked it. A soft photo of her sat beside white lilies. The one where she was laughing mid-sentence, hair tied up, no makeup, just light in her eyes. That's how he wanted people to remember her. Not the pale, fading version in a hospital bed. But the woman who lit up rooms. Liam and Caroline arrived 20 minutes late. Caroline wore sunglasses, even though the sun hadn't made an appearance all week. And Liam looked annoyed more than sad, checking his watch like he had somewhere better to be. They didn't look at Daniel. Not once. When the pastor asked if anyone wanted to say a few words, no one stood up at first. The room sat in that awkward silence, the kind that stretches seconds into minutes. Then Daniel stood. His voice trembled at first. I wasn't planning to speak, but I guess Amelia always said silence was more painful than goodbye. He looked straight ahead. Not at Liam. Not at Caroline. Just forward, as if she were there somehow listening. She wasn't a perfect person, he continued, but she had a perfect heart. He forgave too much, trusted too easily, and loved without conditions. He paused. The words were cutting through him like glass. She didn't leave behind millions. She left behind mornings filled with coffee and sleepy I love yous. She left behind journals full of poems no one will ever read, and a kitchen that still smells like cinnamon when the windows open. She left behind love. He looked down for a second, tears threatening. And maybe that wasn't enough for some people. Maybe they only see what they didn't get. But I see what I lost. He stepped away, hands shaking. The crowd clapped softly, tearfully. Caroline whispered to Liam, She always made everything about him. But then the pastor announced there would be something special. Something Amelia had written herself. Daniel's eyes widened. He hadn't known about this. The pastor unfolded a small letter and began to read. To those who showed up today, thank you. To those who only came to see what they didn't get, I hope you find more peace in your greed than I ever did in your presence. To my brother and sister, I loved you once. And I waited for that love to be returned. I'm done waiting. To Daniel, my husband, my best friend, the only person who held me without asking for anything in return. Everything I owned was touched by your love. So everything I have is yours. Not for what you did, but for who you were. Gasps filled the room. Caroline's face turned red. Liam stood ready to walk out. But Daniel didn't flinch. He just stared at the letter. Every word hit deeper than the last. She had known. She had seen everything. And she still chose love. After the service, people offered condolences. Some offered fake smiles. Caroline muttered something about contesting the will, and Liam complained about emotional manipulation. But Daniel, he just stood there, silent, still holding the letter, still holding her. They didn't wait long. Just 5 days after the funeral, Daniel received a letter from a lawyer, certified cold and cruel. The family of Amelia Green is contesting the will on grounds of mental incapacity and undue influence. Daniel laughed when he first read it. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. Amelia had been more clear-headed in her dying days than most people are in their prime. But of course, this wasn't about truth. It was about money. He sat alone at the dining table, the same place where Amelia used to sneak sugar into his coffee when she thought he wasn't looking. Now the only thing in front of him was paperwork, legal threats, accusations, and silence. Her siblings hadn't spoken to him once since the funeral. No calls. No visits. Just lawyers. Liam filed a public statement through his attorney saying he was deeply saddened by the manipulation of his sister during her vulnerable state. Caroline went on social media and posted a photo of herself with a candle and the caption, "Justice for Amelia." She was more than someone's property. Daniel wanted to scream. He wanted to post the text Caroline had sent just weeks before Amelia passed, asking, "How much is she worth legally?" He wanted to forward the voicemails from Liam asking, "Are you sure she doesn't have another bank account?" But Amelia wouldn't have wanted that. She never fought back with fists, she fought with dignity. So Daniel followed her lead. He hired a lawyer, a quiet man named Harris who wore old suits and spoke like every sentence mattered. They built a case around Amelia's medical clarity, her long-documented will, her journal entries where she wrote, "I see what they are now. I just wish I hadn't wasted so much love trying to believe they were better." The trial date was set. And in the meantime, reporters began calling. Some local newspaper caught wind of the will drama and ran a headline that read, "Dying woman leaves fortune to husband, family outraged." The comments section was a war zone. Gold digger husband. Family deserves something. She should have split it fair. Sounds like she knew what she was doing. Daniel didn't reply to any of it. He just stayed in the house walking through memories like they were landmines. He couldn't sit on the porch without hearing her laugh echoing through the screen door. Couldn't open a drawer without seeing her hairbrush. Couldn't sleep without reaching for the cold side of the bed, the side that used to be warm. But one night he found something, tucked behind one of her books in the study. A sealed envelope. "For when they come for what I gave you." Written in Amelia's delicate handwriting. Hands trembling, he opened it. Inside was a letter. And a flash drive. "Daniel, I knew they'd come. They've never cared about my heart. Only what they could get from it. This letter is for the judge, the court, and anyone who doubts my clarity. This video is my final truth, recorded 2 days before I lost my voice. Let them try. Let them drag my name. But know this, I chose you with the last breath of my strength. And I'd choose you again. Always." Daniel dropped the letter, tears blurring the words. The next day he met with his lawyer and handed him the flash drive. Harris nodded slowly as if holding something sacred. And just like that, Daniel had her voice again. Her strength. her fight. And for the first time in weeks he didn't feel alone. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that presses against your chest like weight. The kind that doesn't let you breathe too loud. The kind you feel in your spine. Daniel sat at the front with his lawyer Harris, both wearing black suits, not out of formality but mourning. Every moment in that room reminded him she was gone. Across the aisle sat Liam and Caroline, dressed for sympathy, but surrounded by their own lawyers and financial advisors like it was a business deal. Caroline kept checking her phone. Liam kept tapping his pen. Neither of them looked at Daniel. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, entered the room, her presence like thunder without the noise. The proceedings began. Caroline's lawyer spoke first. Amelia Green was in an emotionally compromised state. It is our belief that she was manipulated by her husband and not of sound mind when she signed her will. Daniel didn't flinch. Let them say it. Let them bleed it dry. Harris stood slowly. Your Honor, before we continue with our evidence, we request permission to play a video recorded by Amelia Green herself. It was sealed, time-stamped, and verified by medical professionals as recorded while she was still fully lucid. The judge nodded. Proceed. The lights dimmed. A screen was pulled down. And then her face. Amelia's face. Not pale. Not weak. But tired. Brave. Unshakably clear. She was sitting in her favorite chair by the window. A light scarf over her head, eyes soft, voice steady. Hi. If you're watching this, I guess they're trying to take what I gave to Daniel. So let me say this clearly. I wasn't confused. I wasn't manipulated. I wasn't broken. I was dying. And in dying you see people for who they truly are. My brother and sister abandoned me when I was healthy. They only returned when I was fading. Daniel stayed. Through everything. So yes, I gave him my house. My savings. My life's pieces. Because while my family waited for me to die, Daniel helped me live. If you take this from him, you're not just robbing a man. You're erasing love. Don't let them. The screen went black. No music. No drama. Just stillness. A woman's truth. Louder than any lawyer's voice. The judge leaned forward. Is this recording verified? Harris nodded. By 2 medical experts and a notary present in the room. The judge turned to Liam and Caroline's side. Do you have anything to refute this? Silence. Then Caroline stood, trying to salvage what pride she had left. She didn't know what she was saying. The judge raised a hand. She knew exactly what she was saying. Her gavel hit the bench once. The court honors the original will. All assets remain with Mr. Daniel Green. It was over. Just like that. No celebration. No applause. Daniel didn't smile. He just sat still, staring at the screen. At her frozen frame. Her eyes. Her bravery. After the court emptied, he remained in his seat. He didn't want the money. He didn't care about the house. He would have burned it all just to hear her laugh again. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. Liam and Caroline disappeared back into their hollow lives. But Daniel, he stayed in the house. Every Sunday he'd sit by the window with Amelia's journals and a mug of her favorite tea. He started writing letters, to no one, to her, to grief itself. One evening he stood by the lake cabin she left him, the one they were supposed to visit one last time. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "You chose me when you didn't have to. And I'll keep choosing you, every day." As the sun dipped behind the trees he felt a breeze, soft, almost like breath, wrap around him. And for the first time since she left, he didn't feel alone.